Welcome, everybody. I'm joined by Steve, and we're here to talk about MetaZoo. So it's been about a month since it was announced that MetaZoo is going out of print, and I did a video saying, hey, prices are going to crash. So we're here to see, am I wrong? Kind of, maybe. So I have Steve with me to kind of chat about what's going on with MetaZoo now that it's a month out. This closure, I think, kind of shook up the CCG and TCG market a little bit. People were surprised, but also not surprised. I think they're writing it on the wall for a little bit. So, Steve, I understand you read the rule book over the weekend. How was that homework assignment?
It was painful. I did it for all of you, all the viewers. No, I mean, sorry if I don't want to brag on this game too much because I'm sure there are people who actually like it and such. But I read the rule book. So I was curious to figure out: is this a game that people? Is this actually a game people can play?
Right.
And yes, it has a rule book. It's a very unnecessarily convoluted rule book. This game is basically like Magic, Pokemon, and I guess Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know as much about Yu-Gi-Oh!, but definitely Magic and Pokemon put in a blender. And it's just so blatantly just like those two games put together. Like you tap, things are like lands. Your beasties, which are Pokemon, have like weaknesses to other types. It's like it's very similar to these two games. Not much added to it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I always thought, and it seemed like it had like a bit of this, meta element to it as well, where there was like real life actions and things sometimes incorporated, which I guess is kind of a fun gimmick.
Yeah. Credit to where it's due. That is the one thing that's kind of weird but interesting about this game is like it breaks the fourth wall. So you have a card that'll be like, if you're playing where there are real clouds above you, then this guy gets like plus 20 damage. An interesting idea. I don't know how it works in terms of game balance, but okay.
Yeah, you're having a picnic and playing MetaZoo. So the one thing I want to talk about, we're going to get into prices a little bit, but I think I want to talk about the three legs of the successful CCG or TCG stool, right? Players, collectors, and investors. And it always seemed to me that MetaZoo had too many in the investor leg of that stool. And I said this before, but I think if you're approaching an investment product that is being hyped by a DJ like Steve Aoki, especially a card game, maybe just approach with caution. Maybe celebrities are not as in tune with what's cool in a market that they're not really in. And yeah, maybe don't spend thousands of dollars on something Steve Aoki's like hyping up, or Rudy. There's other, I can't remember all the random weird celebrities. There's sort of like this also NFT mix, whereas like crypto influencers. It didn't help the game, like the cryptoids are like the being. I always thought they were trying to be like cute and kind of like piggyback off of crypto's rise, fall. I think we're in a rise again right now. Who knows? But
like I think if you think about like TCGs like stocks, like you get your blue chips, Magic, Pokemon. These games have been around for a long time. They have good fundamentals. To use a little analysis terminology here. A game like MetaZoo, it has bad fundamentals.
Yeah.
It's your penny stocks. And if you want to buy into something like this, go ahead. Maybe it will be the next big thing. But you have to ask yourself why, if you're buying into this, why are you buying this and not Pokemon or Magic? And I'm just not clear why anybody would buy into these games. That might have MetaZoo specifically.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to make fun of the like, oh, people buying sealed boosters as collectors. That's ridiculous. These are toys and games. But hey, man, I have friends that buy boxes of Magic every set that comes out, and it's fun for them. And sometimes it's gone pretty well from like an investment storing value standpoint. So it's to each their own. Is it crazy to have a physical product in your closet, or fractions of a company that you know nothing about? I don't know.
Right. I mean, I for TCGs, I'm primarily a player, and then not really an investor so much. But there's something to be said about having collectibles as part of your investment mix.
Yeah.
And I think done correctly could be okay. But this game, this is the penny stocks. This is the kind of hype bubble of TCGs. I mean, another thing to think about is the lack of organized play for this. I was really curious because everybody's like, "Oh, there's no organized play. I didn't play this." So they have a where to play, where to buy section on the MetaZoo website, which I presume is pulling data from when they were stocking it a month or two ago. Typed in Washington D.C. No store in maybe I think there's one in Fairfax. Typed in New York City, one store in the 5 boroughs. I just had a little time of my hands. I googled that store to see what it was. Are the tournaments there? No, it's just an action figure and manga shop. So you can buy it there. You can't play it. Los Angeles, one store. San Francisco, 0 stores. No, nothing in Asia for this game. A couple shops in Europe. So yeah, not great. You cannot find a place to play this game in the largest cities in America. That is not a good indication of the game's longevity.
Yeah, and I mean the reason why players are so important. One, it's community, it's people interacting with the cards, which means you'll be buying and opening singles. But also, single sales drives markets.
Yeah,
Markets need to have liquidity, right? If there's no real transactions happening, and it's just one guy buying a super rare card from another guy, that's not real liquidity. Real liquidity is TCG Player. There's tens of thousands of individual sellers on there for Magic and Pokemon, and like a really robust marketplace.
Right.
Whether you like the prices or don't like the prices, that is the signs of a healthy market. Or people are transacting every single day. I mean, I would never want to be a small business selling Magic cards on TCG Player, but there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of people that are, and that's their little fun garage business. And I don't think MetaZoo ever really had that, because there weren't players saying, hey, the meta for this game is X. I need 4 of Bigfoot and Hello Kitty or whatever. Like there was never really that happened. It was just people saying, this is super cool. I need this variation.
And probably the counter argument people were making is that, Pokemon is a game that is actually not played that much. It's mostly collected. I think I've heard some stats like 90+% of people who buy the game don't play it. Okay, that's fine. But Pokemon has like arguably the biggest IP globally, certainly the biggest in Asia behind it. It's popular around the world. That's not MetaZoo. Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster are not Pikachu and Charizard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just playing a game at my local game store, the new Star Wars Unlimited, and I was just like, there for like 3 hours, and I was remarking at how many kids under 15 just came in, you can kind of see them all, in the side peripheral view, just to like buy Pokemon packs or like talk with the guy at the store about the new set. Like there is appeal because it's, not a kid's game, but there are kids that it appeals to. And MetaZoo had this sort of hard, PG-13 rated R sort of rating, if you will, if you're using those standards. And I think that just takes away the appeal of like parents going there like, all right, you get 1 pack of something, you're not getting a pack of like the adult cards, right?
Right.
And obviously adults are the biggest buyers, but I think you need to have like a really wide audience if you want your game to be commercially successful beyond like 4 or 5 years.
Right. And I gotta say, art is to some extent subjective, but like the art in MetaZoo, this looks terrible. This is like a guy who's into Pokemon doodling on the back of his binder in middle school or something. And that's the big difference between like Pokemon, even vintage Pokemon was a little rougher than the current stuff. Pokemon art has always looked incredible. I'm not the biggest anime person, but like it looks great. This does not work for me.
Yeah, and one thing I want to just briefly talk about, I've seen some talk that Bandai might buy the MetaZoo IP and revive the game. I just want to say that games 99% of the time do not come back to life because there's been so much structural damage that's been done where people feel burned, people feel left out when you decide to close the game, especially as ignobly as a letter to people, be like, hey, we're done. No warning. There's no finals. I sent a letter out on January 29th. We're done here. Goodbye. And I understand there's some behind the scenes stuff, but many people that spent thousands of dollars feel burned. And I don't really think Bandai buying this is going to like bring all of them back in. Like if I was playing this or collecting, I'd be like, I don't know. This feels kind of dicey. And I understand that there's Maginations coming back. That is an exception. Most of these games do not come back. Like
there's been a couple examples, but usually they're rebooted in a very different format. Like Netrunner coming back as an LCG years later, and the cards are not being compatible. Or like Versus, I think coming back as a limited box set, not compatible, and so forth. So yeah, pretty doubtful. And those games also had like longer runs, much larger player bases, and so forth.
Yeah, so I'm just on the MetaZoo website right now because I was kind of curious. Like, I'm surprised it's still up, but of course they probably have product to move.
Yeah.
So this is maybe a good segue into sort of what's going on with the product. Has the sort of floor fallen out completely, or does it kind of seem like there's still stuff that is, commanding a premium price here?
Yeah, I'll defer to you on some of the price. I was a little surprised on Amazon that like it looks like about booster box are like $40 on Amazon right now. So half off according to Amazon. I don't know. I think they're more than
Yeah.
that originally, but $40. Because people were joking on like Reddit that there'll be like $5 booster boxes any day now. So we haven't quite got that. Singles rares would be about $1 or so for the ones I was looking at. But I mean, to put in perspective, I think there was like the Kickstarter edition of the first set going for like multiple thousands of dollars for a booster box at one point, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think when something goes out of print, there's two things that happen. One, you have people that panic, right? So I think in the
Hmm.
first couple of weeks, you saw panic selling, where it's like, oh crap, like I want to get as much money as I can
Yeah.
back from this. And then we're at a month later, on, people are saying, well, I don't know, I have some extra cash. Maybe this is the time to buy. Maybe this is the time to get into this and just sit on it. Once again, this is not investment advice, but there are
Yep.
people doing this, and to each their own. If they want to own the first edition Kickstarter of MetaZoo, then that sounds cool. It's probably not for me. It's not where I park several
Yeah.
$1,000s in the CCG market or regular
Right.
life. But I do understand people's, now that the dust has cleared a little bit and there's like this Bandai rumor floating around, people are once again kind of speculating on this product that was probably over speculated over the
Right.
last, 4 or 5 years.
Well, I mean, there's been example. I mean, our favorite Decipher games after they got out of print. There was a time to get a booster box of Endor for like $20. You could get booster packs of Reflections for 75 cents places. So, yes, if people had bought those and kept those sealed, they'd be I mean, good amount of money flipping those right now. But you gotta ask yourself, like, maybe we're just biased because we like the Star Wars TCG more, but in 20 years, is there going to be a players committee running MetaZoo? I don't think so.
Yeah, to me, the longevity of this, it just doesn't seem, it seems like something that people in 5 years will look back and like, oh yeah, that was a thing that ended in 2024, 23. When
Yeah,
did it end? I don't know. It was
yeah,
sometime,
January, December.
before AI took over everything. So,
Mhm.
but like, I don't think people are going to think fondly the way they do about games with bulletproof IP, where
Yeah.
there's nostalgia, there's maybe a tragedy of only. I mean, this one sort of has the tragedy where it sounds like there was some mismanagement and
Mhm.
miscommunications that happened between the founder and blah 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 blah. But I just don't see people going back to IP that is not bulletproof and
Yeah.
that appreciating greatly. It's different when it's Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, etc. Because people love that stuff, including if you just watch the TV shows. MetaZoo doesn't have that because it's IP that came out of a guy's brain, which is all IP, but some is more beloved than others, right?
Yeah, and the thing, one slightly sad thing about this is that so this is a Kickstarter product that came about, I think, during the COVID lockdown years, um, and I do think Kickstarter has been very good for other gaming niches, board games and RPGs, particularly. I've backed a few of them; they've been really, really fantastic. But like for some reason, TCGs has not really worked out that well for Kickstarter, and I think there's a few other ones that are like adjacent to like sorcery, and a few others I'm less familiar with that might be in similar trouble. And I guess the main reason is that like it has to do with the money part of TCGs, the
Yes.
collecting, FOMO, got to catch them all kind of thing. You back an RPG manual that's a single book, and you paid your $30, you get it hardcover, it's great, you can play with it. Board game, same thing, maybe an expansion, maybe a couple goodies, but TCGs, it's like kind of you keep pumping it up, people buy more and more of it, and that's I think where the problem lies.
Yeah, I think one of the big issues with the Kickstartification of board games, and I've complained to friends about this, like right, you're adding in, if we reach 100,000, then we're adding another token of
Yeah,
200,000, we're adding another character. And
yeah,
that's fine because that's a contained play
yep,
experience. And I do think it makes games more clunky and there's too many components and you get a
yeah,
little bit of overreach. But with something that has resale value or presumed resale value, right,
yeah,
it distorts the value there because then people think like, oh, if I get the Kickstarter one, then I'm going to have the first edition, then I can
hmm,
sell it for more. Whereas
right,
very few people are looking to sell, like Gloomhaven, right? There was a moment there where like Gloomhaven was more expensive than it was on the Kickstarter, blah, blah, blah. But essentially these are contained play experiences that are not collectible outside of putting them on your shelf. There's not like special editions that aren't massively printed, whereas I think card games are, it's all about getting people to bring the product, right?
Yeah, it would be nice to find a way to allow creators to develop like a TCG-like product on Kickstarter that's independent and interesting and creative without the FOMO flipping angle. I don't know how to do that exactly economically, but if somebody could figure that out, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely board games out there that are valuable because of short print run, but I think that, yeah, I mean, I think what the only way to do that is like a living card game, right? With just fixed sets. And living card games, I think most gamers think are kind of lame.
Yeah, the whole show on those were supposed to be the solution to TCGs, but they introduced their own kind of problems, namely that like you also kind of really had to buy every single drop every single month, or you wouldn't be able to build decks, which is also a problem.
So I guess we'll close up here with just sort of prediction for the next 6 months for MetaZoo. I mean, I think that there's a hardcore community of people that spent a lot of money on this product, and that community is going to dwindle every single month, where a few more people will say, hey, I need to make rent, or I want to buy a car, and there'll just be a slow sell-off that happens over the next 3 months, 6 months, and that community of hardcore people, let's say it's 10,000 people, will just go to 9,000 and then 8,000, and then 2 years from now it'll be a couple thousand, and more. Those small amount of people have a lot more stuff, but eventually there will just be very few people still interested in this stuff in 5 years, 10 years, and maybe there'll be a revival. But I just think like right now you're in this like holding pattern where people like buy more, right? It's like,
I think that's right.
Goes down, buy more.
Yeah, unless this game is always, I think, always built as like an alternative indie kind of trading card game. Unless some kind of grassroots movement picks up to set up a players committee or an independent tournament scene, I just don't see this game being anything other than just fading from memory and from dropping at really low in price over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I think that stuff has to be player driven, because I'd say this is a pretty hardcore collector. Collecting is lame, right? Collecting, there's no community in collecting. Like, yeah, I can show you my master set. I mean, the amount of times I've shown people my cards and they're like, that's cool. Can we go to the other room now? I don't actually want to see your toys. Like, it's cool for you personally that you have this, but it's inherently kind of an isolating experience, right? There's no real community, and community is built by players, not by collectors. You can show off your cool graded cards, your cool super rare stuff, but ultimately it's like keeping focus on collecting. After you've done it, you completed a set, it's like, now what? It can be really challenging in sort of a longevity standpoint.
Definitely.
So interested to see, maybe we'll do a 6-month update, maybe a year update, but I just want to check in on MetaZoo. Steve, thanks for hanging out, man. Any kind of final thoughts here on MetaZoo?
No, I mean, we bragged on the game a little bit, but if you're watching, you like the game, keep playing it and tell other people why they should.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. Like, if you want this game to succeed as a dead CCG, just keep going, man. Keep playing, stick with it, because that's what these other communities of games that we cover, we talk about. Like, people have been just hardcore fans for 20 years and they never gave up, and now they have pretty vibrant little play communities. And frankly, being a part of a small community is nice and intimate and fun.
True.
So, all right. Well, thanks for hanging out, everybody.
Absolutely.
And we'll catch you next time.